Ah, good evening and welcome to Having a Drink with Mink. I'm your host, Jason Mink, and I was just getting caught up on my reading. Thank you for joining us. It's great to have you here this Friday evening. I hope you have a nice beverage on hand. I know that I do. We're going to get right to it because, as always, there is so very much to get to. I am, of course, joined by Naked Woody Harrelson. We had some complaints. Apparently, some folks took issue with Woody running around in the buff, so I went out of my way. I got him something I felt that was old guys who like old comics appropriate, a Robin costume. I got him all hooked up, and, I found these on the dressing room floor. You can lead a horse to water, but you just can't make him wear a pair of little green panties, huh? All right, let's get right to it. But before we do, join me, won't you? Oh yeah, baby. Let's get the weekend going. And to do so, I'm going to read from you from The Chopper Bunch and Other Revved Up Tales. Now, this book was on the Get It the Hell Out of Here table at my local comic book shop. That's Ides Entertainment in downtown Pittsburgh. And, I was flipping through it and I figured I just had to share with you just this first chapter because, there's really nothing quite like it. The Chopper Bunch. Take a good look at a chopper motorcycle. It takes just one look to know there is no way that thing can work. The front wheel stands miles from the rest of the bike. The gas tank is much too small to feed that huge engine. The handlebars are way too high above the seat, and the seat is way too low and hard to give a good ride. In fact, any way you look at a chopper, it looks wrong, like a machine made by a madman, all out of shape, but oh, so beautiful. Of course, choppers do work. A well-made one can easily top 120 on the open road, but even if they did not work and just sat there looking strange and different, people would still build them. Why? Because looking different is very important to people who ride choppers. It has been that way since the early 1950s. That is when the first choppers were built in California. Back then, few Americans rode motorcycles, and then there was only one kind of motorcycle to ride: the hog. Most likely, you have seen hogs. They're the monster bikes that police use, the bikes with fat fenders, radios, lights all over, and other extra parts. To some 1950s riders, hogs were just fine, but others hated the hog. Why? Well, for one thing, all hogs were the same, fat and ugly. These riders wanted something different, and better. That is why some riders started changing their hogs. They took off the fat fenders and other parts. Some even chopped the parts off with an axe. The first choppers were born. You should know about the people who built those first machines, for the public's idea about chopper riders lasted a long, long time. A few years ago, Honda began using a saying in its ads: "You meet the nicest people on a Honda." Well, in the 1950s, you did not meet the nicest people on choppers. In fact, they were some of the meanest people around. Lawbreakers, troublemakers, all kinds of nuts rode those bikes. These riders formed outlaw motorcycle gangs with names like Hell's Angels. They rode across the country like packs of wild dogs on what they called runs. "Hey guys," one outlaw would say, "want to make a run on Parkville?" "Why Parkville?" another would ask. "'Cause that town only has one cop, and that cop is like 80 years old, man!" When that happened, "Look out, Parkville!" The gang would ride into town on as many as 100 choppers. They would break the place up and make all kinds of trouble. Not all riders joined such gangs, but those who did quickly became well known. For some strange reason, Americans like to hear about outlaws. So newspapers wrote stories about the cycle gangs. Movies were made about them. The best-known one was The Wild One, starring Marlon Brando. Because of the gangs, the chopper bikes became known as outlaw wheels, but it also became famous. Few Americans liked the gangs, but many went for the long, low lines of their choppers. By the 60s, many young people were building choppers. They added new ideas to the chopper look. These ideas came from many places. From the world of custom cars came wild paint and shiny metal. From racing bikes came greater engine power. Choppers began to look wilder and wilder. Tailpipes got longer. Then they turned upwards and grew higher. Some choppers had pipes sticking 6 feet in the air. Seats turned upwards too, and shiny metal bars grew up behind them. These were called sissy bars. Why? Because chopper owners took friends for wild rides. The riders turned their friends into sissies, cowards who held the bars tightly. The change in owners has also led to big changes in owner groups. The old outlaw gangs are dying out fast. In their place are more than 100 law-abiding chopper clubs. Boy, doesn't that sound like fun. These clubs go on runs too, but not like the outlaws did. Instead of going to lonely towns, clubs make their runs on parks and beaches. Instead of making trouble, they party and hold contests. Prizes are given for the best bikes and riders. And being clean counts. Come on. Weekly reader books. I think you're making fun of me now. But though most clubs want no trouble, they sometimes get it. People see 100 choppers coming down the road, says one owner. Right away they think, Hell's Angels. Gas stations and eating places close down. People hide in their homes. Soon an army of cops closes in. You have to see it to believe it. But this may change in the future. Americans are starting to understand today's chopper riders, says one writer about bikers. Chopper lovers may like to look different, but they can follow laws just the same as anybody. So hey, let that be a valuable lesson to you. Next time you see a chopper on the road, say cheers. All right. What next? Well, I have some magazines to show you because who doesn't love old magazines, right? Especially when you got men's action. We have thrilling stories like The Grinning Horror of Haiti's Tauntaun Macoute, those golden-legged joy girls of Las Vegas, and the Spymaster'S Pleasure Girl Bustout. Oh yeah, baby, that's right. All for what? 60 cents! What a deal! And then I paid 99 cents a piece for these. These are stripped magazines back in the day. A newsstand would strip the title off. They would send it back to the distributor to get credit for their unsold magazines. And, well, they were supposed to destroy these, and luckily for us Doc Savage fans, they did not. Here's issue number 1, issue number 2, and issue number 3. Issue number 3. That is right. And, I'm not such a big Doc Savage fan that I need to have them immaculate. I just want to read them, and as far as it goes, all of the stories are complete. So for less than $3, well, who's smiling now? This guy. And then we have a nice early Cracked magazine. And this is from 1965, believe it or not. And check this one out. Whoa. Hey. And we wrap things up on the magazine front with some eerie pubs and witches' tales, featuring Nightmare, the Doom Creatures, and the Devil's Monster, none of which might actually appear in this magazine. That's the thing about the eerie pubs. They were a bit of a mishmash. It was whatever Myron Fasten and company could throw together that particular month. It was less about making an artistic statement, more about getting that 35 cents out of your pocket. But, hey, what a ride, huh? Okay, now we got some comics to look at. Here's a nice early Archie. This is number 76. How to Put the Brand on Your Man. Read Mine Detector. And then we have Tiger Girl. Been looking forward to this one for a while. I've been on the hunt for it. I've seen it posted in the group before, and I figure it was ideal for talking about on a future Comics for Breakfast. Then we have Amazing Adventures #1, featuring the Inhumans and the Black Widow. And in a way, this is the first appearance of the contemporary Black Widow. She gets rid of the fishnet stockings and the Harlequin mask, and she jumps into the leather suit that we all know and love. I'm all in on the Tower teen comics of the 1960s. They're good, clean, innocent fun, and the last place you'd expect to see this pinup of Frank Zappa and the Mothers. While Tower often filled space with images of teen idols, this one really surprised me. It can't happen here, indeed. Here Mr. Lodge gets in a cheap shot in more ways than one, and while the gag is cute, Midge in a bikini is the real draw for me. Just don't tell Big Moose. I'm not sure what the heck Ronnie is wearing on this cover. Presumably the curtains. But fashion is a fickle mistress, as Jughead proves with this ad where he invents the Big Bang Theory decades before it aired on TV. He always was a forward thinker. More Archie with Moose discovering the perils of minimum wage living. Get that degree, kid. Inside, Team Betty pulls wildly ahead in this eye-opening sequence. She keeps the lead with this next issue, in both the cover gag and the stunning ad from Harry Lucy, where Betty looks like an angel and Ronnie looks like the Gill Man. Hilarious. More bikini Betty, just because. And if that doesn't do it for you, then how about some monster-sized monsters? Okay, technically a skeleton isn't a monster, but at that size, I'm sure it's just as freaky. Let's take a page from the Love Diary. Ellie, are you deaf? No, she's just ignoring you. Learn to read the room. And dig this ad featuring all your favorite rock stars. There's Donovan, Mathiel, and Kip Grinnington. He's the ginchiest. Next up, my Wilbur smells of mildew. Maybe I'd better air it out more often, huh? More teen humor with Josie in her pre-Pussycat days. Anyone remember Pepper? She was like Midge, only louder. And you know you're an old guy who likes old comics when you say that unmistakable Jack Davis art and everyone just kind of looks at you blankly. Guess you had to be there. How about the first ever Heroes World catalog? As a youngster, I dreamed about visiting this Shangri-La, but had to make do staring at the ads. Check out the Baby Brigade, featuring pint-sized versions of all your favorite heroes. Good grief, indeed. Here's a swell Overstreet supplemental covering the Atlas Seaboard line of comics from the 1970s. I've always been a big Atlas guy, so this makes for good reading and a nice colorful checklist for the issues that I'm missing. Back in the 1980s, small press publishers reprinted a lot of 1950s work, and these reprints can often be found inexpensively. Here's a few, starting with this Eclipse title, The World of Wood, focusing on Wallywood. A+ provided us with these Herbie reprints, which are always appreciated. Those back issues ain't cheap, folks. And then there's this kitchen sink reprint of some classic Spirit stories. I may already have these in a trade or something, but better safe than sorry. And how about some Basil Wolverton goodness in the form of Planet of Terror? What self-respecting reader could resist? Here's a little run of Pacific comics, starting with Kirby's Captain Victory number 13. I missed this one the first time out, but I always buy these when I find them. Here's more Kirby and Silver Star, which I know less about, but hey, the price was right. And then there's some early work by Arthur Sidem, perhaps best known for his Marvel Zombies covers. More Archie, and it looks like Moose is on the warpath again. Guy's gonna give himself a coronary. Inside we find Ronnie, obviously inspired by repeated listenings to Miles Davis' Sketches of Spain. Classic. Here's another Wilbur stealing jokes from his better-selling brethren. I swear, I just saw that net gag in an issue of Archie a few months ago. Still funny, though. On the back, we learn to solve math problems the hard way. With chalk. A nice mid-60s Archie with a fun cover, but it was this ad inside I had to share. A life-size poster of the Beatles. Yes, here they are, all 4 feet of them. TV always makes you look taller, doesn't it? We jump ahead a few years and it looks like Josie has run into some trouble. And if that's her screaming, then who's the skull belong to? And here's an ad I've passed by a dozen times, but it always makes me chuckle. Go Lenny! This Betty and Veronica issue is a riot, as one of the stories sees Ronnie try and get out of a date by disguising herself as a 10-year-old. However, things go a bit awry when she realizes the mistake she's made, and Betty sure doesn't help matters. Well, at the very least, she knows what the word indelible means now. More Betty and Veronica with Midge dancing her little heart out in the background. Inside, we have this odd ad for merch featuring these jumpin' Archies. Cute, but Jughead doesn't strike me as a big jumper, what with all the hamburgers he eats. And grok this ad for daisies. I've smoked out of a lot of weird stuff, but guns? What, you don't have an apple and some tinfoil? Here's a coverless cutie from the American Comics group who used the technique of coloring their pages black to create a 3D type effect without the use of glasses. A cool idea and some great spooky horror stories. Here's another coverless pre-code, a little crime does not pay for you. And if you're up for the challenge, figure out who done it. Was it Palmer Dunn, unscrupulous gambler, jilted dancer Joy Fenton? Or was it Cuthbert Wiley, homicidal maniac? Shades of Harvey Knee-slapper. We finish on this Archie, and before you groan, hold on. This one is unique, as it features profane sketches on several pages. For $3.50, I just had to know. Now, profane might seem too strong a word for most of this, but it's certainly not in good taste. Also, I'm not sure that the artist is all that familiar with the male anatomy, judging from whatever the heck Mr. Weatherby has going on down there. Outrageous! All right. Thank you so very much for joining us on this very special episode of Having a Drink with Mink. What made it so very special? Why, it was you, wasn't it? Okay, be sure and look for Comics for Breakfast. It comes back this Sunday, so I hope to see you there. From all of us to all of you, cheers.